Hey everyone, and happy 4th of July. Today I want to take a moment to honor some of my ancestors, people who helped build this country and played a meaningful role in its founding. My family has been in America for over 400 years. We arrived in the early 1600s, and I'm directly descended from colonial governors, including the governors of Massachusetts and Connecticut. And I feel a deep sense of pride and gratitude for the kind of people they were, driven, principled, full of ideas and character. They helped lay the foundation for the United States, a country that has become a beacon of freedom and opportunity for people all over the world. So let me introduce some of them. We're going to take a little journey using a website called FindAGrave, which helps you trace your family's lineage through cemeteries and headstones. And we will start here with my mother. This is my mother, Mary Armour Ransom Nelson. And so I scroll down here where it says family members, and I'm clicking on her mother. This is my grandmother, Mary Louise Ransom Nichols. And I go down and click on her mother. This is Mary Armour Nichols. So this is my great grandmother. Go down, and her father was Herman Ocean Armour, who's actually kind of famous. He started the Armour Meat Company. So scroll down to his family members. We see his mother is Juliana Ann Brooks Armour. So this is my great, great, great grandmother. And we're going to go down and look at her family members and click on her father, Simeon Brooks. So Simeon Brooks, this is my great, 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 great grandfather. And his wife was Lucy Knowlton Brooks. And Lucy Knowlton Brooks, okay, she had a brother who was 4 years younger. His name was Thomas Knowlton. And that's who I want to tell you a little bit about, Thomas Knowlton. And I actually want to go to his Wikipedia page here. Thomas Knowlton was born in 1740 and died in 1776 while fighting alongside General George Washington at the Battle of Harlem Heights. He was just 36. And Knowlton was a battle-tested soldier even before the American Revolution. At age 15, in 1755, he fought in the French and Indian War with his older brother. He had incredible nerve. He snuck behind enemy lines to get intelligence. On a few occasions, he was surrounded by the enemy and had to escape while being shot at. Later in 1762, he joined a British expedition against the Spanish, and he fought in Cuba. And when the American Revolution broke out in 1775, he quickly took action as a captain of a Connecticut company of farmers. They're farmers that were armed with shotguns. They didn't have any uniforms. He led these 200 men into Massachusetts and successfully repelled British grenadiers. He lost only 3 men in the process. In 1776, during the siege of Boston, General Washington sent Knowlton to destroy British buildings at the base of Bunker Hill. Knowlton captured numerous British troops without firing a shot or losing a man, and Colonel Aaron Burr, who would later become vice president, he was so impressed, he said, quote, "It was impossible to promote such a man too rapidly." And Congress promoted Knowlton to major. And that same year, he led a successful raid on a British housing setup for officers in Charlestown. And a month later, General Washington promoted him again, and this time to colonel, lieutenant colonel, and he ordered him to select a team of reconnaissance missions. Knowlton put together a team of 200 soldiers. These became known as Knowlton's Rangers. This was the first organized elite troop in the U.S. Army, and they were the foundation of what we now call military intelligence. Captain Nathan Hale, the American spy, he served under Knowlton's command. And you may have noticed the year 1776 here down on the bottom, the U.S. Army Intelligence Seal. That's because it marks the formation of Knowlton's Rangers. So on September 16th, 1776, during the Battle of Harlem Heights, Knowlton was scouting ahead of Washington's army when his Rangers encountered British forces, and after a retreat and regrouping, Washington ordered a counterattack to hit the British from behind. But Knowlton's troops, they turned early and they hit the flank instead, losing the element of surprise, and they were under heavy fire. Knowlton rallied his men. They charged. He was mortally wounded while leading the charge, as was Major Andrew Leitch of Virginia, and both men died in front of their troops. And General Washington honored Knowlton the next day in his general orders saying, quote, "The gallant and brave Colonel Knowlton would have been an honor to any country, having fallen yesterday while gloriously fighting for his." Knowlton's legacy, it lives on. In 1995, the Military Intelligence Corps Association created the Knowlton Award to give individuals who make outstanding contributions to Army intelligence, recognizing those who embody the integrity, character, courage that Knowlton stood for. There's a statue you can see here that's in front of the Connecticut State Capitol, and he's immortalized as well in this famous painting by John Trumbull called "The Death of General Warren at the Battle of Bunker's Hill," and that's Knowlton here in the white shirt with it holding his rifle and protecting the fallen general. So when it comes to the Revolutionary War, I had probably a dozen family members who fought. They were frustrated by British rule, by what you could call the billionaire class of their time. They were powerful elites in London, controlling the economy, stifling freedoms, and treating the colonies as a source of revenue rather than a land of free people. And my ancestors, they fought to change that. They wanted to create a new kind of country where no government could control what you think or what you say. They rebelled against taxation without representation, economic restrictions, censorship, and the violation of personal privacy. And as a side note, it's striking how many of those same issues we find ourselves confronting again today. Censorship, violation of privacy, we've got digital ID coming. We've got many of these same issues in the face of a new class of billionaire globalists. But back then, my family had developed a strong American identity. They didn't hesitate when the call came. They joined the fight for independence. And here's an example. This is the grave of my great-great-great-great-grandfather's brother. And you can see, if you click on the tombstone here, see if I can make that a little bigger, that at the top there it says Revolutionary War, right at the top. He died in 1828, and 52 years after the war began, he's putting Revolutionary War. The fight was clearly stayed with him. And if you look at the third line, it says Lexington Alarm. And that wasn't just a phrase. The Lexington Alarm was a mobilization of colonial militias when the British marched on Concord. Paul Revere was part of that network, riding through the night to alert the militias that the British were coming. And these early warnings gave the colonists a crucial edge that enabled them to ambush the British and launch armed resistance that became the revolution. The fact that James Armour had Lexington Alarm carved on his tombstone half a century after the war really says everything, that the fight for liberty wasn't just a moment in history, it was a defining part of who he was and who we are. Okay, now I want to follow a different branch of my family tree. I have a lot of relatives who played key roles in early American history, including 3 who signed the Declaration of Independence. But for this part, we're just going to go back through my mother's line again, this time through her father, who is Warren Aaron Ransom. And this is my mother here. So if we trace this up, that's her father. He fought in World War I. Above him, this is his father, Warren Aaron Ransom. And then his mother, Mary Mumford. And then this is Gurdon Mumford. He was a congressman. He was also Benjamin Franklin's secretary, and interesting guy. And his wife, actually, my wife has this painting in her living room. I have a copy of the one on the right, but the original of the one on the right is in a museum. It's a very interesting guy. So I'm just going to jump through these. The Saltonstalls, also governors at different times. I just want to work on this one, which is the Winthrops. Here is Wade Still Winthrop. He was a Chief Justice in Massachusetts. This is when it was a colony. But I want to go all the way back to this guy, John Winthrop. And John Winthrop came to the New World in 1630, leading a fleet of Puritans to found what became the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He serves as its first governor, but more than just a political leader, he offered a profound moral vision for the new society that they were building. And on the voyage over on the ship, he delivered a sermon that became legendary in American history. So it's often called a model of Christian charity, but in it, he warned that the new colony would be, quote, a city upon a hill, the eyes of all people upon us. And Winthrop believed the world was watching. This new society would either be an example of righteousness or a cautionary tale. But what many forget is that his vision wasn't triumphalist. It was deeply communal. It was humble. And he told his fellow settlers that God had made people unequal on purpose, that rich and poor would need one another and thereby knit themselves together through mutual love, generosity, and sacrifice. And he called on the people to rejoice together, mourn together, labor, and suffer together. That's a quote, to see themselves as one body bound by a covenant, not only with God, but with each other. And he warned that if they broke that covenant, if they chased wealth and selfish ambition and turned away from their moral obligations, their failure would become, quote, a story and a byword throughout the world. This powerful idea that America must live by its principles or be disgraced in the eyes of the world still resonates today. And it's no surprise that presidents like John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan quoted Winthrop to remind Americans of our responsibilities, not just to ourselves, but to one another and to future generations. So as we celebrate Independence Day, I want to express my deep admiration and gratitude for Thomas Knowlton, for James Armour Jr., for Gurdon Mumford, for John Winthrop, whose vision of moral unity helped define the soul of early America. And their courage, their values, their sacrifices really helped shape the United States, not just as a nation, but as a bold and fragile experiment in liberty and community. I'm going to be sharing more of these stories in the future, but for now, thank you for letting me share this one, and happy 4th of July.